I never thought that slipping off my shoes to rest my ankles would end up exposing the truth about my own son and his wife. It was 6:18 p.m. on September 14th, 2024. I was tiptoeing down the back stairs, still dressed from my afternoon errands, when I heard voices echoing from the front hall. I stopped, silent, and leaned against the wall just outside the dining room archway. The shadows shifted across the polished oak floor, and then I heard her. "Chloe, the master suite is mine," she said, the glide in her voice so smooth it almost sounded rehearsed. "And my mom can have the room next door." Her heels clicked confidently across the marble, pointing out rooms like a real estate agent giving a tour. My heart stalled. The master suite, mine, the one I had painted a deep coral, the one where I lit a lavender candle each night before bed, the one with my sister Darlene's wedding quilt folded at the foot of the bed. Chloe had no key. I hadn't told her the address, but there she was, in my home, flanked by her mother and brother, waving her hands like she owned the place. Ice crept up my spine. They laughed. She opened a hall closet and joked about fixing the weird shelf. That shelf had been crooked since I moved in. I'd left it as it was, like a nod to imperfection. A reminder that some things didn't need straightening. I pulled out my iPhone, still gripped in my hand from checking the time, and with a flick of my thumb, hit record. I held it low, just under the banister rail. I captured her saying it, clear as glass. "The master suite is mine, and my mom can have the room next door." I saved the file as a voice memo, 2 minutes, 37 seconds long, and stepped backward up the stairs without a sound. In my room, I locked the door. I sat on the edge of the bed I thought I knew. The deed to 14 Brentwood Ridge was inside the drawer of my nightstand, next to an old lipstick and a note from my late sister. It was in my name only, paid in full. The house wasn't theirs. The house wasn't even my son's. They didn't know that. Yet they had trespassed, and worse, claimed it. I lit a sandalwood candle, the kind Darlene used to calm her nerves. As the flame steadied, I let myself feel it. Not just the ice in my veins, but the heat in my chest. Betrayal burns in ways even the best housewarming candle can't hide. That night, I slept with the voice memo backed up to the cloud, my phone under my pillow, and a slow, solid thought blooming behind my eyes. They had planned this, but so had I. The night before, I caught Chloe assigning bedrooms in my home. This morning, I remembered who I was. September 15th, 2024. The sun bled through the slats of my bedroom blinds in soft lines. I brewed my coffee slow, poured it over oat milk, and lit a stick of sandalwood in my upstairs alcove, the private study I'd carved out when I first moved in. I sat cross-legged in the armchair by the window, journal in my lap. Journal entry number 423. No more shame disguised as silence. I'd been keeping this journal for 5 years, since Darlene passed. She was my older sister by 14 months, my compass when the world spun off its axis. When cancer came and left too soon, she left me something else. $870,000 after taxes, tied up in municipal bonds, and a retirement fund she'd never get to use. "Do something wild," she told me, barely able to speak near the end. "Live how they never let us." I did. I bought 14 Brentwood Ridge in cash. Every window tall, every doorknob smooth brass. A white-columned dream house nestled in Oakton, just 2 blocks off the golf course, but far enough that you could still hear crickets at night. Nobody knew. Not Max, not Chloe. I told them I'd moved to a modest rental while downsizing, because if they knew what I had, they'd start reaching. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. "Just checking in, smile." No punctuation. No question mark. Just the emoji. A soft threat wrapped in bubblegum. I stared at it for a while. Her breezy tone belied what I'd heard the night before. "The master suite is mine." She thought I'd stay soft. I closed the phone and opened my laptop. I logged into Raymond Bank and Trust. Sharon Leeds, my financial advisor, had set up the entire inheritance structure. Living trust, home deed in my name, quarterly disbursements. The house, the account, the trust. It was all built to withstand storms, including this one. They didn't know I was the storm. I walked the halls that morning with my hand brushing the painted molding, the house still empty except for me, and the voice memo stored safely in my iCloud. I was no longer confused. I was no longer the woman who co-signed leases and answered texts with emojis. I was Renata Price, born in Newark, raised in church basements and borrowed shoes, twice a widow, mother of one son I used to know. I was 66 years old. I had survived grief, scarcity, and silence. And now, I had a house full of secrets, and time, and receipts, and I was ready. The morning after Chloe's text, I poured my coffee and moved through my house like I always did, pretending none of it had cracked. From September 8th through the 13th, life had been calm. My kind of calm. I stocked the pantry with care, lined up the rice and beans, the olive oil and sea salt, just how I liked. A bottle of Malbec tucked behind the cereal box. I arranged lilies in the foyer, yellow stargazers in a cut glass vase. They made the whole hallway smell like Sunday mornings. Sam Cooke played low in the kitchen. A change is gonna come. I hummed along. My life was full of choice, of privacy, of peace. I was proud of what I'd built. Every room was exactly how I wanted it. Neutral tones, heavy curtains that kept the afternoon heat out. The breakfast nook held a round table with 3 chairs, because 4 felt like too much, and 2 felt like giving up. I kept the 3rd for Darlene. I'd started this life quietly, deliberately. No welcome party, no social media posts. Just a single delivery van pulling up to 14 Brentwood Ridge one July morning, with the last box of books and one framed photo, me, Max, and Darlene, at Lake Arrowhead, 1997. I budgeted everything. The inheritance was solid, but I'd made a plan. I lived on $2,340 a month, utilities, groceries, property tax, maintenance. No extravagance. Just a life where I answered to no one. On the 10th, I bought a housewarming set of candles, amber and bergamot, 4 for $28. I took a photo of the receipt just in case. And then on the 11th, Chloe sent me a Pinterest board. Title: Renovation Mood Sparkling Heart Home. It was full of marble backsplashes and waterfall islands, double-wide sinks, and muted sage cabinets. No note. No explanation. Just a link. I stared at it for 10 full minutes before I closed the app. Because I knew what it meant. She saw herself here. Already. In this house she didn't own, hadn't built, hadn't paid a dime toward. But she smiled in my face. And I smiled back. On the 12th, I took a walk to check on the neighborhood. Brentwood Ridge was quiet that afternoon. Mrs. Connie, at number 12, waved at me from her porch. She ran the local watch. She didn't know everything yet, but she noticed more than she let on. "Everything good, Renata?" she asked. "Still standing," I said, and smiled. What I didn't say was that Chloe had sent a second board that morning. Title: Home Spa Vibes for the Master Bathtub Sparkles. That night, I rechecked the locks on every door, and I slept in leggings, just in case. A week ago, she sent renovation boards. Today, I remembered why she ever felt entitled in the first place. It was March of 2022. Franklin Hills Apartments. The day I co-signed their lease is burned into my memory, not because of the papers, but because of the tears. Chloe had been crying, not the loud kind, the quiet, practiced kind. Her mascara didn't run, her voice didn't crack. Just one tissue dabbed against the inside corner of her eye, like she'd watched herself do it in the mirror before. Then I slipped one into a red folder labeled Q4. Documents, just in case anyone ever tried to gaslight me about making things up. They thought they were being strategic. But I'm a woman raised on itemized receipts and church ledgers. I've tithed more precisely than they've ever spent a dime. I don't forget what I give, especially when it's taken for granted. After tallying $62,910 of care, I remembered the moment I should have started counting. August 12th, 2024. A Wednesday. The heat sat heavy on the house like a wet blanket. I had been baking sweet cornbread, Darlene's recipe, the one with sour cream and creamed corn, when I stepped out to check the mailbox. When I returned, Chloe was standing by the kitchen counter. "Oh, hi," she said too brightly, holding a piece of mail she hadn't asked for. I glanced at the envelope. It was from Allstate. She handed it to me, her fingers tight around it, like it burned. I thought it was for Max. The slit was already there. Uneven, torn, like someone had opened it in a rush, trying to be neat, but not quite getting it right. "No worries," I said, placing it under a stack of magazines. "This one's mine." The moment passed. I went back to my cornbread, but something stayed knotted in my gut, even as the smell of butter and vanilla filled the room. That policy was my homeowner's renewal. $1,923 annually, the kind of envelope you don't open unless it's yours. Unless you're looking for numbers. She'd called it a mistake. I had blinked it away. Now I saw it for what it was. The first grab. A test. I remembered how she lingered that day, pacing, chatting too loudly, complimenting my curtains and asking odd questions about square footage. I'd chalked it up to heat and sugar. I didn't want to believe what was obvious. But when someone rifles through your mail, they aren't admiring your decor. They're assessing your assets. That was the first time I felt it. The creep of surveillance. The shift from family to threat. That night, I hid the Allstate envelope in my bedside drawer. I locked the drawer. I didn't tell anyone. Because back then, I still believed in being gracious. Now I believe in being ready. Looking back, my silence was its own betrayal. To myself. Every time I let a moment slide. Every time I swallowed my discomfort. Every time I said it's nothing. I told them I was easy. That day's cornbread sat half-eaten for 3 days. I couldn't bring myself to finish it. I threw it out eventually, and even that felt like a confession. This house, my money, my peace, it had been open concept for too long. No more. Because if Chloe thought she could open my mail and call it concern, she didn't understand who she was dealing with. But she would. Soon. After the mail incident, I watched everything closer. Good thing I did, because the next move came from a stranger. September 18th, 2024. I was parked outside Mount Zion Senior Center, halfway through a lukewarm coffee and waiting for my chair yoga class, when my phone rang. Voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I tapped play. "Hi, this is Nancy Greer with Beacon Realty. Just following up on our phone call earlier. Your daughter-in-law said she's representing you and wanted a quote on the Brentwood Ridge property for a possible listing. Let me know if you're ready to move forward." The breath left my lungs like a tire deflating. I listened again. Your daughter-in-law representing you? Possible listing. I hadn't contacted any realtor. I hadn't mentioned selling. I hadn't given Chloe my address, not formally. I sat frozen in the car, hands on the wheel, parked beneath a blooming magnolia tree, while the old gospel choir inside sang through the open windows. She said she was your representative. The word rep echoed like it had legal weight. Like Chloe had rights, like this was already in motion. I didn't go into class. I drove straight home. Stopped only to grab a spiral notebook from the Rite Aid on Del Mar. I labeled the first page, Chloe Moves. Underneath, I wrote, September 18th, Realtor voicemail from Nancy Greer. Chloe impersonated me. Address used without consent. No prior discussion. Then I called Nancy back. "This is Renata Price. I own 14 Brentwood Ridge," I said, voice even. Nancy was polite, then flustered. "Oh," she said, "you were on board. That it was a family transition situation. She even gave me a list of updates you were planning." "What list?" "New kitchen, new bath, roof inspection." She mentioned flipping. Flipping. That's what they said on those TV shows. Flip it fast, flip it cheap, flip it for cash. They thought they could flip my life. I thanked Nancy for her time. and asked her to send me whatever notes she had. She agreed, and within an hour, I had a PDF of her inquiry sheet. There, in pen that wasn't mine, was my address, written in round, bubbly loops I knew by heart, Chloe's handwriting. There was a signature line with no signature, and a check mark next to "Sole owner confirmed." I printed it, labeled it Exhibit B, and slid it into the red Q4 Documents folder. I texted Victor next, my neighbor, XIT from the city school board. Trusted, quiet, technical. "Do you still do home security?" He replied in less than 10 minutes. "For you, always." They were planning something. But so was I. After the realtor call, I started watching. That's how I found her mother's purse hidden in my house. September 20th, 2024, a Friday. I was vacuuming the guest room when I opened the closet to check for extra blankets. I don't know what made me reach behind the luggage, but there it was. A caramel-colored Coach purse, neatly tucked behind my travel duffel. Too clean to be forgotten, too intentional to be random. I pulled it out slowly. It wasn't Chloe's. The style was older, more classic, but the gold initials on the zipper tab, LMS, told me exactly whose it was. Chloe's mother, Marjorie. My hand clenched the strap. My heart beat against my ribs. They'd already started nesting. She'd staked a claim. I checked the main compartment. A packet of tissues, half a roll of mints, and a monogrammed hand mirror. No wallet, no ID. Just enough to suggest presence, not enough to accuse. I carried it to the kitchen and set it on the counter like a specimen. I didn't touch it again. Instead, I pulled up the security app Victor installed for me the week before. We'd mounted 3 cameras, one at the front door, one in the main hallway, and one in the guest wing, disguised as a smoke detector. I scrolled back to the afternoon before September 19th and watched. 1:22 p.m. Chloe enters with her mother. No knock, no call ahead. Max's old key still worked. 1:29 p.m. Chloe gives a tour. Gestures to hallway like a realtor. 1:37 p.m. Marjorie opens the guest room closet, looks inside, steps away, then returns alone with the purse. Carefully places it behind my duffel. Looks around. Smiles. She smiled. I paused the footage and stared at the frame. Her face was lit with satisfaction, like she'd just planted a flag. I clipped the footage. Saved it to a labeled folder. September 20th, guest closet drop. I backed it up to 2 drives and emailed a copy to Victor. Then I texted Chloe. "Did your mother leave something here?" She replied 8 minutes later. "Oh, her purse. She must have dropped it, woman face-palming." Dropped it. Behind luggage. In a closed closet. On the far side of the room. Anger pressed against my ribs. I didn't respond. Instead, I printed the camera log. Time-stamped. Added the screenshots. Inserted everything into the red folder. Then I locked that guest room. And changed the code to the alarm system. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I was still soft, still asleep. But I'd lived through harder people than Chloe. And the house that used to carry my grief now carried a camera in every corner. This wasn't a home anymore. It was evidence. After finding her mother's purse, I gave Max the benefit of the doubt, and he used it to tell me not to overreact. September 22nd, 2024. Rain tapping the windows like slow applause. I was sitting in my sunroom, tea cooling on the wicker table, when I finally picked up the phone. I didn't call Chloe, I called my son. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey, Mom." There was warmth in his voice, faint, like an old sweater you forgot you owned. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just asked, "Max, what's going on?" A pause. Too long. Then, "What do you mean?" Chloe giving tours of my house, her mother hiding purses in my closet, a realtor calling me about a quote I never asked for. "What's going on?" He sighed. Long, heavy, scripted. "Mom, you always jump to the worst conclusions." Chloe was just excited. She was showing her family around. "You know she loves home design. It's not hers to show. You're overreacting." I stared out at the hydrangeas blooming against the fogged-up glass. A hummingbird hovered at the feeder. I felt a thud in my chest, grief for the boy I raised. I let the silence hang. He filled it, just like I knew he would. She just wanted to feel welcome. She planted her mother's purse in my closet, Max. She said it was an accident. Do you believe that? Another pause. I don't know. Maybe. She's been stressed. Stressed. My laugh startled even me. It came out bitter, brief. I've supported you two for 3 years, I said. And now I'm being asked to make way in my own home. You're reading too much into this. I ended the call quietly. An hour later, a knock at the door. No Chloe. Just a delivery man in a soaked windbreaker, holding a bouquet of lilies and a glittery gift bag. I tipped him and took it inside. The card read, "To the Queen of the Castle Bouquet." No signature, but the receipt was still in the bottom of the bag. Same-day delivery from a florist Chloe used before. Her card was charged at 11:24 a.m. I added the receipt and a photo of the bouquet to the red folder under a new tab. Symbolic appeasement. I didn't call her. I didn't say thank you. I poured out the flower water that night and threw the stems in the compost. Because that's what you do with rot. Max had chosen his corner. And I saw now it was smaller than I'd hoped. But I wasn't shrinking to fit it. Not anymore. After Max called me an overreaction, I poured wine and pressed play. September 23, 2024, 9:47 p.m. The house was dark, save for the soft amber glow of the sconce above my study desk. I sat with a glass of Zinfandel, the security app open on my laptop. Footage from September 20th, the same day I found Marjorie's purse, cued and ready. I didn't expect what I saw next. Chloe didn't come alone that afternoon. At 1:15 p.m., her brother pulled into my driveway in a silver Tacoma license plate, barely readable in the frame. At 1:21, they both entered using Max's old key, still on Chloe's keychain, despite my earlier request for them to return it. At 1:33, they stood in the kitchen. He pulled out a measuring tape. 8 feet here, he said. If we take out this wall, you'll have a direct line to the living room. Good light. Exactly, Chloe replied. We can flip this easy. I'm thinking we redo the counters first. Quartz, not granite. That's dated. Flip this easy. I paused the footage, wine halfway to my lips. Flip. This wasn't a visit. This wasn't excitement. This was premeditated. She was standing in my kitchen, one I designed myself, and talking about gutting it like it was a foreclosure. She hadn't even waited for me to die. I let the footage run again. They made their way to the pantry, the guest bath, the sunroom. Each room treated like a showroom. Every door opened like it already belonged to her. When they finally left at 2:07 p.m., Chloe looked straight into the camera, my camera, and smiled. Waved. The gall. I clipped the footage and dropped it into the folder, renamed the clip, Kitchen Flip, September 20th, 1:33 p.m. Then I noticed something else. On the hallway camera, 2:09 p.m., Chloe's brother dropped a business card on the entry table. I retrieved it the next morning. David Mahler, property appraiser, of course he was. I scanned the card, took photos, logged it all. Then I called Victor. Asked if he could upgrade my system. Full perimeter, indoor sensors, motion alerts tied to my phone. No charge, he said. You just pay for the hardware. You're not doing this alone. That was the moment it all crystallized. This wasn't about keeping peace. It wasn't about Max. It wasn't even about love. It was theft, dressed in entitlement. So I poured the last of the wine. Watched the footage one more time. And as I watched them measure the kitchen I'd spent a year saving for, I realized I didn't need permission. I needed a plan. After watching them measure my kitchen like it was a remodel project, I called Sharon and shut the vault. September 25th, 2024. Oakton branch of Raymond Bank and Trust. I wore my navy pantsuit, the one with shoulder seams that make me feel like a lawyer, and walked straight to Sharon Leeds' office. She looked up from her desk, eyes soft but knowing. "Renata," she said, "you ready?" "I am." I sat down, pulled a yellow legal pad from my tote, and began reading. "I want to freeze checking account number 00347219. Remove all authorized users. Revoke power of attorney filed in 2022. Change all beneficiaries to myself only. And close the joint savings. Immediately." Sharon didn't blink. She opened the file on her screen and started clicking. "No problem," she said. "Do you want a new PIN and debit card too?" "Yes, and reissue checks to a P.O. box I'll set up by tomorrow." "Understood." It took 33 minutes. While she worked, I pulled out the spreadsheet labeled Renata Support 2021 minus 2024 inches and added one last line, September 25th, final cutoff. Access revoked. Boundaries restored. Total to date, still $62,910. But from this moment on, not a penny more. Sharon handed me a fresh envelope, new debit card, account summary, and the revocation forms, all signed, all stamped. Then she slid over a document stamped confidential, revocation of durable power of attorney max price. I held it in my hand like a key finally returned. Sharon leaned back, folded her hands. "Do you want to talk about what brought this on?" I looked out her office window. The leaves outside had just started to turn. "My son and his wife are trying to steal my house," I said, level. "And they almost succeeded." Sharon nodded. "You're not the first mother to sit in that chair and say something like that." She didn't pity me, she didn't question me. She just printed 3 more copies of every revocation and handed me a folder. On my way out, I stopped by the teller line. The Crate and Barrel card I'd foolishly added Chloe to was now disabled. I left the branch and drove straight home. 3 hours later, Chloe texted, "Hey, weird? My card got declined at Crate and Barrel?" Smiley face. No question mark. I didn't answer. I screenshotted it, printed it, and slid it into the red folder, now thicker than a Bible. The next day, I walked into the post office and opened a P.O. box under my maiden name. For the first time in years, my money answered only to me. And I liked the sound of that silence. After cutting off the accounts, I spent the next day doing what Chloe never expected. I documented everything. September 26, 2024. FedEx office, corner of Brentwood and Maple. I took the corner copier station, the one near the window. I brought a canvas tote full of manila folders and a flash drive with over 80 files, PDFs, JPEGs, MP4s. I didn't rush. Every scan fed the machine with the steadiness of someone who'd spent a lifetime filing church bulletins and tax returns. The machine hummed like a quiet witness. Deed to 14 Brentwood Ridge. Property tax receipts. Original wire transfer from Raymond Bank. $870,000 into escrow. Trust paperwork. Darlene Lewis Inheritance Trust. Beneficiary, Renata Price. Revocation of power of attorney, notarized. Bank statements showing all disbursements to Max and Chloe. Voicemail transcripts from Nancy Greer, realtor. Screenshots of Chloe's Crate and Barrel declined card. Security footage clips, purse placement, kitchen flip conversation, Chloe's voice claiming the master suite. Texts, emails, Pinterest boards. My voice memo from September 14th. The master suite is mine. Each page slid into its own clear sleeve, arranged by date and category. I labeled the spine of the black binder in gold Sharpie, mansion, owner documents. I added 3 tabs to the back, fraud attempts, unauthorized access, witness logs. The last one was still blank, but I had plans for it. I paid for 2 copies, one to keep, one to hand off. Total, $43. I didn't flinch. As I waited for the binding, Ms. Marquez, the notary on staff, approached me. "You getting ready for court?" she asked gently, watching the stack grow. "Not yet," I replied. Just tired of being disbelieved. She nodded. We get more mothers and grandmothers in here than you'd think. They always bring folders like that. Her eyes lingered on the binder title. They always think we don't have proof. I handed her the revocation forms and affidavit of trust ownership and asked her to notarize 2 more copies. She stamped each one without hesitation. When I left, the bag was heavier, but my back stood straighter. I took the long route home, past the florist where I used to buy Chloe's birthday lilies. I didn't stop. At home, I slid the binder into the fireproof safe in my upstairs study. Then I made 1 more copy of the video files on a labeled USB drive, footage 9/18 and 9/20. I slipped it into a padded envelope, sealed it, and addressed it to myself, care of my new P.O. box. I would not be caught empty-handed again. Let them come with entitlement. I'd meet them with timestamps. After compiling my binder, I gathered something even more powerful. Witnesses. September 27, 2024. Zion Hill Community Church, 3rd floor office. Pastor Reeves leaned back in his creaky leather chair, the morning light angling through the tall window behind him. His office smelled of wood polish and old hymnals. I laid the binder on his desk. You remember when I co-signed Max's lease? I said. He nodded slowly. Back in 22. You were tired then, too. I thought that was rock bottom, I said, then opened the binder. He flipped through, page by page. Bank statements, screenshots, notarized forms, a printed still from the footage. Chloe's brother measuring my kitchen. He didn't interrupt. When he reached the tab labeled fraud attempts, he paused. Do they know you've got all this? No. They think I'm too proud to confront them. He tapped the edge of the binder. No. You're just meticulous. And now you're ready. I passed him the witness letter I'd drafted. It read, To whom it may concern, I, Pastor Alton Reeves of Zion Hill Community Church, have known Renata Price for 14 years. I have personally reviewed her documentation and can attest to the consistency, clarity, and credibility of her account regarding property ownership and financial abuse. She has expressed a desire for peaceful resolution, but not at the expense of truth. He read it once, then again. I'll sign it. He pulled out a fine-tipped pen, clicked it open, and signed with a steadiness I hadn't seen in years. I exhaled without meaning to. Victor was next. He met me that afternoon in his garage, hunched over a folding table littered with wires and motion sensors. I upgraded the motion triggers, he said, handing me a printed log. Also synced your system to auto backup every 72 hours to the cloud, and a private drive only I can access. I handed him a copy of the binder. Keep it in your safe. And if anything happens to me, anything, you open it and send it to Sharon. He nodded. No speech. Just that solemn, XIT silence I trusted more than most prayers. That evening, I met Sharon at her branch office one more time. I've got witnesses now, I said, placing a copy of the witness letter on her desk. Good, she said. Then it's time to formalize everything. She prepared an affidavit of sole ownership and had it notarized right there. 3 people, 3 points of contact. Victor, Tech, Sharon, money. Reeves, spiritual and legal witness. My team. That night, Chloe sent a group text. We're coming by Sunday to move in 2 hearts. I didn't reply. I took a photo of the text, backed it up, printed it, and added it to the folder under a new tab. Intent to trespass. No more fear. Only facts. After gathering my team, I made my boundary visible, in ink, on paper, and nailed to the door. September 28, 2024. Brentwood Ridge, 8:03 a.m. The sky was gray and close, like it knew something was coming. I stood on my front porch with a cup of Earl Grey and the cease and desist letter in a clear protective sleeve. Curtis Legal Services had drafted it just the way I asked. Precise, unemotional, legally tight. It read, To Max Price and Chloe Simmons Price, you are hereby instructed to cease and desist all attempts to access, enter, tour, alter, or claim ownership over the property located at 14 Brentwood Ridge. This home is solely owned by Renata Price, as documented by deed and trust. Any further entry or impersonation will be treated as criminal trespass and fraud. This letter serves as formal notice. A duplicate copy has been mailed to your listed residence on file. Respectfully, Curtis Legal Services, LLP, filed September 27, 2024. I affixed the letter directly to the front door, below the brass knocker, and under the Ring doorbell camera. The adhesive strips were industrial grade. I wanted no confusion. The house was silent except for the birds. Inside, every lock had been changed. New codes. New backup battery installed. Victor had walked me through all the settings himself. Motion detection zones, timestamp overlays, cloud redundancy. Even if they smashed the cameras, the footage would survive. At 8:37 a.m., I got a voicemail. Chloe. I didn't answer, but I played it twice. This is cruel, Renata. We're family. We were just trying to help you feel less alone. You don't need that big house all by yourself. The voice was syrupy at first, but it cracked halfway through. You could hear the panic beneath the performance. I transcribed it, printed it, filed it under emotional leverage attempt, 9/28. Then I walked through every room in the house, touching doorknobs and picture frames like I was reclaiming them with my hands. In the foyer, I lit one of the amber candles from the housewarming set I'd bought myself back in early September. The flame flickered steady. They thought this house was a trophy, but it was a promise I made to myself. I texted Sharon and Pastor Reeves a photo of the letter posted. Victor replied first. About time. That afternoon, I mailed a certified copy of the letter to Max and Chloe's last known address. Sharon had checked the zip and confirmed it against the account records before I pulled the envelope from the printer tray. They had 2 days before Sunday. Let them come. I had already drawn the line, and this time I had copies. After I posted the cease and desist, they showed up anyway. Like paper and locks meant nothing. September 29, 2024, 2:14 p.m. I heard them before I saw them. Tires crunching on the gravel, hurried footsteps up the driveway, Max's voice rising like a hot wind. I didn't open the door. I didn't move from my upstairs window. Through the Ring feed and the hallway monitor, I watched it all unfold. Max stood at the door, face tight, fist clenched. Chloe hovered behind him in a pink cardigan, eyes rimmed with red. Her voice was shrill, rehearsed. "Mom, open the door! This is insane!" She rattled the handle, tried the key. Denied. The lock blinked red and chirped back at her, indifferent and final. "Open this damn door!" Max shouted, pounding the frame. I didn't flinch. Then Chloe screamed, "I deserve this!" The words hit harder than the fists on the door. Deserve. She paced the porch like it was hers to reclaim, talking to no one and everyone. "After everything we've done for you, after all the care we've given, you leave us out in the cold? Like we're thieves?" Max stared at the cease and desist taped under the knocker. He didn't touch it. He just read it. Twice. "This is embarrassing," he muttered, stepping back. "For everyone." I opened the Oakton PD app and filed a trespassing report with a single click. Officer Daniels, who patrolled Brentwood Ridge, called me back within 10 minutes. "They're on your property right now?" "Yes. After formal written notice. It's all recorded. I'll dispatch a unit." I watched them wait, then argue, then quiet. At 2:39 p.m., the patrol car pulled up. Blue lights, no sirens. Daniels stepped out, mid-40s, calm voice, firm jaw. I came downstairs, cracked the side window open, just enough to hear. "She has documentation," Daniels said after Chloe tried to plead her case. "You're not listed on the deed." She filed formal notice. "You're not authorized here." "But this is my husband's mother," Chloe snapped. "This is family." "Doesn't change the law." Max said nothing. Daniels handed Chloe a copy of the report he'd written, right there on the hood of his cruiser. "If you return without invitation, it becomes a misdemeanor. Understand?" Chloe took the paper like it burned her hand. Daniels turned to the camera and nodded, like he knew I was watching. They left without another word. I waited an hour before opening the door. I peeled off the cease and desist, replaced it with a fresh copy, and stood for a moment on the porch, breathing in the heavy air that comes after a storm. No one had touched my doormat. The lilies Chloe once sent were dead and dry in the compost, and the house was still mine. Because I'd stopped asking and started documenting. After the trespassing report, I invited them for one final sit-down, where silence would not save them. September 30th, 2024, 3 p.m. sharp. Raymond Bank and Trust, Conference Room B. Neutral carpet, soft lighting, glass walls too thick for yelling. I had arrived 15 minutes early with my black binder, my padded envelope of USB drives, and 2 calm witnesses. Sharon sat to my left in a navy sheath dress, fingers laced. Pastor Reeves sat to my right, hands folded on the table, collar pressed, glasses freshly cleaned. His presence filled the room with a gravity neither legal nor emotional, just undeniable. I heard Chloe's heels before I saw her, sharp clicks across the tile. She entered like a woman late to her own birthday party. Fluffed hair, mauve lipstick, ivory blazer. Max followed, quieter, shoulders curved in, tie half-hearted. Chloe clocked the room in a second. Sharon's presence, the thick binder, the USB drive labeled footage 9/18 and 9/20, and smiled anyway. "Well," she said, "this is dramatic." I met her gaze. "You've brought a lot of drama to my front porch." She sat. Max stayed standing for a beat, then slowly slid into the chair beside her. "I want to make this clear," I began, placing the binder between us. "This is not a discussion. This is documentation." Sharon nodded. "We're here to validate ownership, financial records, and to review footage submitted as part of an internal investigation." Chloe blinked. "Investigation?" Sharon turned to her smoothly. "Max's name has been removed from all joint accounts. The power of attorney has been revoked and refiled. Any attempt to use it after September the 25th of may be considered fraudulent." Pastor Reeves opened his folder and pulled out his signed witness statement. He slid it forward like a pastor placing scripture on the pulpit. "I've reviewed every piece. The house, the money, the texts. I'm here because Renata asked for peace, not punishment." Chloe sat back. "You're treating us like criminals." I pressed the USB into the table slot. The projector hummed to life. The screen lit up. Clip 1, Chloe, in my hallway saying, "The master suite is mine, and my mom can have the room next door." Clip 2, her brother measuring the kitchen. "We can flip this easy." Clip 3, Chloe placing Marjorie's purse in the closet. Clip 4, Chloe trying her old key on September 29th. Denied, screaming, "I deserve this." Max looked like he'd been punched. Chloe tried to snatch her purse. "You made these look worse than they are," she muttered. "They are exactly what they are," I said. The binder sat closed now, its weight no longer metaphorical. I stood. "You came for what was never yours. Now you know what's mine." The room stayed silent, and the projector clicked off. After I pressed play, I laid the rest of the story on the table, hard, paper-backed, and time-stamped. Still September 30th, 2024. The conference room smelled faintly of toner and steel. The silence after the footage had a weight of its own. Not tension, not shame, just clarity. Max leaned back, eyes glazed. His jaw worked like he wanted to speak, but hadn't figured out who he needed to be yet. Chloe's hands were tight around her purse strap, lips pressed so thin they looked drained of color. I opened the binder. "This," I said, flipping to the first tab, "is the deed. Sole owner, Renata Price. Paid in full, July 2024. Wire confirmation from Raymond Bank, page 2. Sharon nodded. Verified. Tab 2. Trust inheritance from Darlene. $870,000 after taxes. Trust agreement filed and notarized. Tab 3. Revoked power of attorney. Sharon lifted her copy. Stamped and entered. Max's authority terminated as of September 25th. Tab 4. financial ledger of support. Every dollar, every date. I pushed a copy toward Max. $62,910 in support. Rent, groceries, tuition, flights. All of it. You never asked where it came from. You just spent it. He didn't look up. He just stared at the numbers like they were someone else's life. Tab 5. Printed screenshots. Chloe's texts about Crate and Barrel. The group message about moving in. The Pinterest boards. I paused on the spa-themed mood board for the master bath. Held it up. Quartz over granite, huh? She had the nerve to look embarrassed. Pastor Reeves leaned forward and cleared his throat. Not harsh, but firm. Chloe. Max. I sat here today to bear witness. Not to shame you, but to make clear. Renata did not imagine this. She didn't invent betrayal. She documented it. With love, at first. With boundaries, finally. He closed his folder gently. Some people build families. Some people build plans around someone else's property. I reached into my bag and pulled out the USB drive. I've left a copy of this footage in the church archive. I've also emailed a backup to Sharon, to Victor, and to my attorney. This isn't about punishment. I stood slowly, looking at both of them. It's about closure. Max finally spoke. Just one word. Mom? But I shook my head. No, I mothered you. I covered you. I carried you. But today, I own this. Not just the house, the truth. Chloe stood too quickly. Her chair scraped the tile like a final protest. You're paranoid. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because Sharon slid her copy of the signed revocations into an envelope and handed it to Pastor Reeves, who placed it in his breast pocket like communion. Let's go, Chloe hissed, tugging Max by the arm. They left in silence. I remained seated. Because I had nothing left to prove, only peace to protect. October 1st, 2024. Sunrise. The sky over Brentwood Ridge was soft lavender, streaked with gold. Dew clung to the rose bushes along the walkway, the kind of quiet that feels earned. Victor met me at the front steps, toolbox in hand, thermos of black coffee under one arm. You ready? He asked. I nodded. He changed the lock in 15 minutes. High security deadbolt. Reinforced strike plate. New passcode on the keypad. New app permissions. I watched each screw turn, each plate click into place. When he was done, he reached into his coat pocket and held something out. A single matte black key, rounded edges, wrapped in a piece of folded blue cloth. What's this? He smiled. Didn't want it to rattle in the toolbox. I took it. The key was warm from his palm. On the blank head, he had etched one word in neat, block letters. Mine. Outside, a robin landed on the railing. Inside, the house sighed with stillness. Its silence no longer sharp, but sheltering. I walked the rooms like they were being reintroduced to me. The guest room? Locked, and now truly spare. The master suite? Sun-warmed, untouched. Mine. The kitchen? Unflipped, unapologetic, still holding the memory of Darlene's sweet potato pie recipe taped to the inside cabinet. On the mantel, I placed a new photo, me, holding the deed in one hand and the key in the other, taken by Victor. A symbol, not of ownership, of recovery. Because justice isn't loud, it doesn't always gloat. Sometimes it just settles like clean air after a storm. I didn't get revenge. I got the house that heard everything and chose to tell me. And now, when I walk through the front door, I feel it.